probably the thing that was the hardest for me to get involved and probably drove some of my friends nuts was fertilizer. I wanted to be able to talk to you about fertilizing and feeding the soil properly. Our soil as it is now just does not have enough natural nutrients in it to see plants flourish. You're going to need to provide some supplemental fertilization. One of the things that we know that we were learned in school, not beating up on them, is just the fact that a lot of us do not like Osmocote as a controlled release fertilizer because it's been proven to not release its fertilizer at the proper time. What I wanted to do was to bring you what the growers use. And in that, I was looking for the Nutricote or the Florikan fertilizer to bring it and make it available to you. This was not as easy as it sounds because it's usually on a wholesale basis. But when you got those little balls in there, those little balls are called prills. And in those little prills, Florikan actually worked with NASA. And the patents to these things are a closely held secret because that is what determines whether their fertilizer releases at the proper time. Those are little balls that are in there, or layers, or coats of different coatings with fertilizer in between each layer. And their release time on that is a lot of times dependent on temperature, soil temperature, where it's laying down on. One of the problems that we know we've seen that we've talked about with Keith is it will release too much at one time when the temperature gets too high, and that's one of the problems that we've seen with Osmocote. It gets hot in the summertime, it dumps all the fertilizer at one time and burns your flowers. So what we wanted to do was to look at a way to make it readily available. Now those of you who say, well, I've used 10-10-10 all my life and that's what I put out on my flowers. Okay? Well, when you put out basic non-controlled release fertilizer like 10-10-10, it makes that nutrient available to the plant immediately. That's a good thing in some instances, but then that means that if you get a big heavy rain, you have coated that stuff with fertilizer and you may be putting out way too much green growth or new growth too fast for the plant. You want it to give an even amount of food. You don't want to feed it a big meal at the beginning and then not feed it 3 weeks from now. That's what the idea behind a controlled release fertilizer does. They make these ratios available to you, basically what I was saying, throughout the whole growing season. Well, my task in this was to try to find a fertilizer that would cover most of our growing season. Okay? And it was harder to do than you think. Florikan is well known. It's like, and I'll tell you where you're going to get it at Hickory Hill. She said, well, we sell Osmocote. And I said, I understand. I said, what do you use in the greenhouse? On your cutting? She said, we use Florikan. So, you know, I will tell you that I work closely with Roger, more closely than they get the phone calls in the car. With this work, with this work, with this work, okay? Because he actually grows the plants and knows what it takes to get them. Florikan has just released in the last year a 300-day release, which covers 90% of our growing season. A 19:5:9 ratio, which will be a good, easy, steady release of a controlled fertilizer. All right. Now, for those of you who are adjusted by it, we've got 5-gallon buckets over here today we're going to sell for $15. Okay, if you don't want to buy a big one. Some of you were going, oh my gosh, that's a good price. But then I figure some of you stroke when you find out that a 75-pound bag costs, a 50-pound bag costs $75. Okay, so I wanted to give you a little bit of a comparison. You're going to put I'd say one application. I think you're safe to say one application in 300 days. Now that leaves us 2 months in the dead of winter. But, you know, not many of our plants are actually thriving and growing during the winter time. If you took 10-10-10 with micronutrients, which is what we really need to buy, is $16.95 was the price that I got in December for a 50-pound bag, is 34 cents a pound. I would say you would have to put that out at least 3 times on an even, means you got to do it too. You got to remember to do it. It's going to cost you $1.02 a pound over the growing season, where this is going to cost you $1.50 and you put it out once. And it's going to feed your plants in a normal flow that it needs to do, not burn up. Now, there are a bunch of different control release fertilizers out there, and I'm sure you all have a happy one. Some of you may have ones that you've been using. My goal was to get you the one with the longest time release from the company that I thought was most respected in the South for the growers, and that was Florikan. Getting it here was a different story. Okay? There is nobody other than Hickory Hill that you're going to find this fertilizer available in this 300 days. They have brought it in. Yes?
Is it also recommended for houseplants?
I don't know. Keith? Houseplants?
Yeah, moderate dosage should work fine.
Okay. Just, put it out. Now, they have it in right now. If you don't want to buy a whole bucket, I suggest you go in with a friend, split it by half, okay? You're not going to find it. Believe me, I worked with Chad Keel, the sales rep for the whole Southeast United States for 3 months trying to get something in at a reasonable price.
Did you call T-Bones? Because he's selling it and he breaks it down into simple bags. You can buy so much.
Do you know if he's selling the 300-day release?
It was let's see.
So it was a 180, so it was 180 days.
180 days.
Yeah.
And he can. I mean, if that works for you, fine and dandy. I like the Florikan product. That's what I'm mostly trying to push for you. And then they do. They making big money doing that now. And I think Barbie may be able to help with this, but even Roger is moving, or maybe moving to this 300-day release.
He's testing.
He's testing, okay? Because their new patent system on it is actually providing that cheaper than cost per pound than what he was using before. So it's kind of a combination. I want to get you the Florikan product available and the longest release date that we could get.
Well, that's such a good, I mean, you know that the price, you can get a price from A.M. Leonard.
You absolutely can.
But shipping will kill you. It puts it way out of the reach of a homeowner. So the fact that Hickory Hill is carrying it, and yes, that price of $75 includes the shipping, but it's like minimal. So that's a great price. So if you're a serious gardener and you only want to fertilize once a year, I would fork over the money.
And if you say buy it with Fred,
Yeah.
put
Go
in
with some
something,
other people,
put it in a little bucket, tighten it up. It will last you a long time. It lasts a lot longer. One of the things you find out about 10-10-10 is you go in there and it's a brick bat, okay? Well, this is not going to do that because it's encapsulated. And that other gets moisture in it. When it gets moisture in it, then it gets hard as a brick, and then it's not good anymore, okay? This is not going to do that. It's going to stay together. Yes, ma'am?
Well, what kind of failures?
We should work on it. We're doing this as general, throw it out there on everything. Now, I mean, you can read all these things that your camellias need this certain thing, and this needs this certain thing, and this, I ain't got time for all that.
Well, I've probably used this for 4, maybe 5 years now, and I use it on everything in my garden, everything. So, without any particular rhyme or reason.
And those of y'all who went last September, knows that she's got a little bit of everything different growing in her garden, so it's all together. All right, so the last couple of things we're going to talk about, I know I'm running a little bit late, is but we could not talk about a soil fertility discussion. I wanted to spend a little more time on the fertilizer because I'm going to tell you